10 Habits of All Successful People. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they live without habits, not bad habits. No habits at all. They wake up without intention. They move through the day reacting. They fall asleep hoping tomorrow will be different. And then they repeat the same day for years. If you are listening to this audiobook right now, it means something inside you already knows the truth. Success is not random. It is not luck. It is not reserved for a chosen few. Success is built quietly, daily, through habits most people ignore. Welcome to 10 Habits of All Successful People. This is not motivation designed to make you feel good for 5 minutes. This is mental architecture. This is the blueprint behind every life that rises above average. Whether success means wealth, freedom, peace, impact, mastery, or all of it combined, the same habits appear again and again. Different industries, different countries, different personalities, same habits. And today, you're going to understand why. Hang on a sec. Hey there, write in the comments what you'd like us to talk about in the next video. We promise to read all the comments and pick the best and most relevant topics. Thanks. Chapter 1. Success is a system, not a moment. People love dramatic stories, the overnight success, the viral breakthrough, the sudden rise. But real success doesn't happen in moments. It happens in systems. No successful life is chaotic behind the scenes. It is structured. It is intentional. It is repetitive. That repetition is what most people resist. Because repetition feels boring. It feels slow. It feels invisible. But repetition is where power is built. Success is not about doing something extraordinary once. It's about doing something ordinary, exceptionally well every day. The world rewards consistency, not intensity. Most people wait to feel inspired before they act. Successful people act until inspiration becomes irrelevant. This audiobook will not ask you to become someone else. It will show you how to train your behavior until success becomes inevitable. And it begins with the first habit. Chapter 2. They set clear goals and refuse to live without direction. You will never meet a successful person who doesn't know where they're going. They may not know exactly how they'll get there, but they always know where they're heading. Most people live without a target. They say things like, I just want to be happy. I just want to make more money. I just want things to work out. That's not a goal. That's a wish. A goal is specific. A goal is measurable. A goal pulls you forward even when motivation disappears. Without goals, your mind drifts. And a drifting mind is easy to control by fear, by distractions, by other people's priorities. Successful people don't let life decide for them. They decide first and then force life to respond. They define what they want, why they want it, what it costs, and what they are willing to sacrifice, because every goal has a price. And here's the truth most people avoid. If your goal doesn't scare you a little, it's probably too small. Goals stretch identity. They force growth. They expose weakness. That's why most people avoid them. But successful people understand something critical. A goal is not a guarantee of success. It is a guarantee of direction. And direction alone puts you ahead of 90% of the world. When obstacles appear, and they will, goals become anchors. When doubt creeps in, and it will, goals become reminders. When discipline weakens, and it will, goals become non-negotiable standards. Successful people don't ask, do I feel like doing this today? They ask, does this move me closer to my goal? And if the answer is yes, they act. No negotiation. Take a moment right now. Ask yourself, do I actually know where I'm going? Or am I just hoping things improve? Because hope is not a strategy, and comfort is the enemy of change. In the next chapter, we'll explore the habit that separates leaders from victims, the habit that determines whether you take control of your life or spend it reacting to circumstances. Responsibility. And once you understand this habit, there is no going back. Chapter 3, they take full responsibility. No excuses, ever. There is a moment in every successful person's life where something shifts, a moment where blaming stops. No more blaming parents. No more blaming the economy. No more blaming bad luck, unfair systems, or other people. That moment is the beginning of power. Successful people understand a brutal truth. The moment you blame something outside of yourself, you give your power away. Responsibility is not about guilt. It's about control. When you accept full responsibility for your life, something incredible happens. Everything becomes changeable. Your income, your skills, your relationships, your confidence, your future. Unsuccessful people say, "That's not my fault." Successful people say, "What can I do about it?" Even when it's unfair, even when they didn't cause the problem, even when life hit them hard. Because responsibility is not about being right. It's about being effective. Victims wait for conditions to improve. Leaders adapt. Victims ask, "Why me?" Leaders ask, "What now?" And this habit alone separates those who rise from those who repeat the same year forever. Responsibility is heavy, but it is also freeing, because when everything is your responsibility, everything is also within your influence. And that is where momentum is born. Chapter 4. They master their daily routine. Discipline over motivation. Most people live at the mercy of their mood. If they feel motivated, they act. If they don't, they wait. Successful people do the opposite. They design their day before emotions get involved. They understand that your life is not shaped by your big decisions, but by your daily routines. What you do when no one is watching. What you do when you're tired. What you do when motivation is gone. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. Successful people don't ask, "What do I feel like doing today?" They ask, "What does my future require me to do today?" They wake up with intention. They protect their mornings. They prioritize what matters most before distractions take over. Because mornings set the tone for everything. Chaos in the morning becomes chaos in the day. Clarity in the morning becomes progress. Their routines include time to think, time to learn, time to work deeply, time to reflect, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And here's the truth, most people avoid. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. That's why motivation fades, but routines endure. Successful people build routines so strong that even on their worst days, they still move forward. Small progress every day beats massive effort once a month. Pause for a moment. Look at your daily routine. Does it reflect the life you want or the life you're settling for? Because the next habit will challenge something even deeper, your relationship with time. And once you understand how successful people value time, you'll never waste it the same way again. Dear viewers, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 5. They treat time like a non-renewable asset. Money can be earned again. Lost opportunities can sometimes return. But time? Time never comes back. Successful people understand something early that most people learn too late. Time is the real currency of life. That's why they are ruthless with how they spend it. They don't casually scroll for hours. They don't give unlimited access to everyone. They don't fill their days with noise and call it being busy. They ask one powerful question constantly: is this worth my time? Because time spent is a vote for the future you're building. Every hour invested in growth compounds. Every hour wasted compounds too, just in the opposite direction. Unsuccessful people trade time for comfort. Successful people trade time for leverage. They protect their calendar like a vault. They say no without guilt. They understand that every yes to something unimportant is a no to something that could change their life. And here's the hard truth. You don't find time. You decide what matters. Time management is not about doing more. It's about doing less, but doing the right things consistently. That's why successful people don't rush. They move with intention. They slow down to speed up. Because when you respect time, time rewards you back with progress. Chapter 6, they never stop learning, but they learn differently. Successful people are obsessed with growth, but not in a random way. They don't consume information for entertainment. They consume information for application. They don't ask, what's interesting? They ask, what skill will increase my value? They read differently. They listen differently. They think differently. Every book is a tool. Every lesson is an upgrade. Every mistake is data. They understand that income follows value, and value is built through skills. Communication, problem-solving, leadership, focus, emotional control. Skills that compound over time. Unsuccessful people wait to be taught. Successful people seek to learn. They invest in knowledge before they invest in comfort. They learn from people who are ahead, not people who complain. And most importantly, they apply what they learn immediately. Because knowledge unused is wasted potential. A single insight, applied daily, can outperform years of passive consumption. That's why successful people are never done. They are always becoming, always sharpening, always upgrading. Because in a world that keeps changing, the most dangerous thing you can do is stop learning. Take a breath. You've now seen how successful people think about responsibility, routine, time, and learning. But the next habit goes even deeper. It determines whether people trust you, follow you, and want to work with you. The next chapter is about integrity and why it quietly opens doors that force never could. Chapter 7. They do what they say, even when no one is watching. There is a quiet power that successful people carry. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't demand attention. It's called integrity. Successful people understand something most overlook. Your word is your brand. When they say they'll do something, they do it. When they commit, they follow through. When it's uncomfortable, they still show up. Not because someone is watching, but because they are. Unsuccessful people break promises to others. Then they break promises to themselves. Successful people guard their word fiercely because every broken promise erodes self-trust. And without self-trust, discipline collapses. They don't make excuses. They don't explain endlessly. They don't blame circumstances. They adjust. They adapt. They execute. Integrity builds reputation. Reputation builds opportunity. That's why successful people don't need to announce their reliability. People already know. Doors open quietly for those who can be trusted. And the most important relationship integrity protects, the one you have with yourself. When you say, "I'll do this," and you do it, confidence grows, momentum builds. You become dangerous in the best way. Chapter 8. They are comfortable being uncomfortable. This habit separates almost everyone. Successful people don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They act through discomfort. They understand that growth and comfort never live in the same place. If it feels easy, you're probably not growing. If it feels scary, you're probably expanding. They lean into the things that stretch them. Difficult conversations, hard decisions, new environments, unfamiliar challenges. While others avoid discomfort, successful people train inside it. They don't panic when things feel uncertain. They don't retreat when confidence shakes. They breathe, they focus, they move forward anyway. Because discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that something new is being built. Unsuccessful people ask, "How do I avoid this?" Successful people ask, "How do I grow through this?" That's why progress accelerates for them. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They walk with it. And every time they do, fear loses a little more power. Pause for a moment. You've now seen how integrity and discomfort shape real success. But the next habit? It's the one that determines whether effort multiplies or stays capped forever. The next chapter reveals why successful people think long-term and why patience is one of the most underrated weapons in life. Chapter 9. They think long-term while others think fast. One of the most dangerous traps in life is short-term thinking. It feels productive. It feels urgent. It feels rewarding. At first, successful people escape this trap early. They don't ask, "What feels good now?" They ask, "What pays off later?" While others chase quick wins, successful people build foundations. They understand a truth most people avoid. Anything meaningful takes time. Health, wealth, mastery, trust, influence. None of it is instant. They're willing to plant seeds they may not harvest immediately. They invest effort into systems, not shortcuts. They choose consistency over intensity. That's why they don't quit when results are invisible. They know invisible progress is still progress. Unsuccessful people stop when they don't see feedback. Successful people keep going because they understand compound effect. Small actions, repeated daily, over years. That's how overnight success is built, quietly, slowly, invisibly. They delay gratification without feeling deprived, because they're not focused on today's comfort. They're focused on tomorrow's freedom. Chapter 10. They control their attention. Attention is the new currency, and successful people guard it ruthlessly. They know this. If you don't control your attention, someone else will. Unsuccessful people are reactive. They check their phone constantly. They chase notifications. They jump between tasks. They let interruptions dictate their day. Successful people are intentional. They choose when to consume. They choose when to disconnect. They choose when to focus deeply. They understand that focus multiplies ability. It's not that they're smarter. It's that they're less distracted. They schedule thinking time. They block distractions. They protect deep work like it's sacred, because it is. Focus turns average effort into exceptional results. And here's the secret most never learn. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. Successful people don't do more. They do less, better. And over time, that precision compounds. Take a breath here. You've now uncovered habits that shape integrity, courage, patience, and focus. But the next habit is the most emotionally challenging of all. It's the one that determines whether you grow or stay stuck repeating the same patterns. The next chapter reveals why successful people take responsibility for everything, even when it hurts. Chapter 11. Dear viewers, please write in the comments what assets you buy or are interested in. Perhaps these are stocks or maybe cryptocurrency. It is interesting to see how you structure your investment portfolio. Also, please write what you think about real estate. Is it still relevant to buy flats today? Chapter 11. They take full responsibility, even when it hurts. This is the habit that separates adults from victims. Successful people take responsibility for everything in their life, not because everything is their fault, but because everything is their responsibility. They don't blame the economy. They don't blame their parents. They don't blame bad luck, bad timing, or bad people. They ask one question instead. What can I do about this? That question changes everything. Unsuccessful people give power away through blame. Successful people take power back through ownership. When something goes wrong, they don't waste energy complaining. They study, they adjust, they improve. Responsibility is uncomfortable. It forces honesty. It removes excuses. But it also creates freedom, because when you accept responsibility, you gain control. You stop waiting to be rescued. You stop hoping someone else will fix it. You become the solution. This is why successful people grow faster. They don't need perfect conditions. They adapt to imperfect ones. And here's the truth most people resist. Your life changes the moment you stop blaming and start leading yourself. Chapter 12. They turn pain into information. Pain destroys some people and educates others. The difference is not strength, it's interpretation. Unsuccessful people ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Successful people ask, "What is this teaching me?" They don't romanticize pain. They don't enjoy struggle, but they extract value from it. Failure becomes feedback. Rejection becomes redirection. Loss becomes clarity. They analyze setbacks without attaching shame. Instead of saying, "I failed," they say, "This approach didn't work." That subtle shift keeps their identity intact. Because successful people never confuse who they are with what happened. They understand. Pain is temporary. Lessons are permanent. That mindset turns adversity into an advantage. While others carry wounds, successful people carry wisdom. And over time, that wisdom compounds into confidence. Pause for a moment. You've now learned habits about focus, responsibility, and resilience. But there's one habit that determines whether all of this becomes sustainable or burns you out. The next chapter reveals how successful people protect their energy, not just their time. Chapter 13, they protect their energy like currency. Time is limited, energy is even more precious. Successful people understand this deeply. They don't just manage their schedules, they manage their state. They know that a distracted hour is worth less than a focused minute. That being busy without clarity drains momentum. That saying yes to everything slowly kills excellence. So they become selective. Selective with conversations, selective with commitments, selective with environments. They avoid drama not because they're above it, but because it's expensive. Negative people drain energy. Meaningless arguments waste focus. Constant noise erodes clarity. Successful people guard their inner world fiercely. They design routines that recharge them. They prioritize sleep without guilt. They move their bodies because motion sharpens the mind. They know burnout is not a badge of honor. It's a warning sign. And this is the hidden truth. Your results will never exceed the quality of your energy. Protect it. Because when your energy is high, discipline becomes easier, focus becomes sharper, confidence becomes natural. Chapter 14. They do the hard thing first. Procrastination is not laziness. It's emotional avoidance. And successful people refuse to let discomfort control their decisions. They do the hardest task first, before distractions multiply, before excuses appear, before fear negotiates. This habit builds momentum fast, because once the hardest thing is done, everything else feels lighter. They don't wait to feel motivated. They act and let motivation follow. They understand something most people don't. Discipline creates confidence, not the other way around. Each small act of follow-through strengthens trust in themselves. And self-trust is powerful. When you trust yourself, you stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing. You move decisively. That decisiveness compounds into leadership, even when no one is watching. Chapter 15. They think long-term in a short-term world. Most people live for now. Successful people build for later. They make decisions today that their future self will thank them for. While others chase instant gratification, they invest in delayed rewards. They understand the math of compounding, not just in money, but in habits. Small disciplines done daily outperform bursts of motivation done occasionally. They're willing to look boring now to live extraordinary later. They don't panic over short-term losses because they're focused on long-term wins. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people sacrifice their future to feel good today. Successful people do the opposite. They sacrifice comfort today to build freedom tomorrow. That mindset quietly separates winners from the rest. Take a breath. You've now seen how successful people manage energy, discipline, and time horizons. But there's a deeper habit, one that determines how high they can rise without losing themselves. The next chapters reveal how successful people master humility, learning, and inner balance. Chapter 16. They stay humble enough to keep learning. The moment you think you know enough is the moment your growth quietly stops. Successful people never arrive at that illusion. No matter how far they've come, they remain students. They read when others scroll. They listen when others interrupt. They ask questions when others pretend to know. Not because they lack confidence, but because they respect reality. They understand that the world changes fast. Skills expire, strategies age. What worked yesterday may fail tomorrow. So they stay curious. They study mistakes, especially their own. They analyze losses without ego. They extract lessons instead of excuses. And here's the difference maker. They don't confuse confidence with arrogance. Confidence says, I can figure this out. Arrogance says, I already know. One leads to growth, the other leads to stagnation. Successful people choose growth every time. Chapter 17. They turn failures into data, not drama. Failure is inevitable. What separates successful people is not how often they fail, but how they interpret it. Most people personalize failure. They internalize it. They say, this means something is wrong with me. Successful people do something radically different. They depersonalize it. They treat failure like feedback, like data points, like instructions. They ask, what went wrong? What can be improved? What would I do differently next time? No self-pity, no emotional spirals, no victim mindset. They understand that failure is not a verdict, it's a lesson, and lessons, when applied, become leverage. That's why they bounce back faster, stronger, smarter, because while others are busy feeling embarrassed, they're busy adjusting strategy. Chapter 18, they build inner stability before outer success. This habit is subtle, but powerful. Successful people don't rely on external validation to feel grounded. They don't need applause to stay consistent. They don't collapse when criticism appears. They don't chase approval at the cost of integrity. They build an internal compass, a sense of self that isn't shaken by trends, opinions, or noise. They know who they are. They know what they stand for. They know why they're doing what they're doing. That inner stability allows them to stay calm under pressure, to make rational decisions in chaos, to lead when others panic. And here's the truth most never learn. Outer success without inner stability becomes a prison. Money without peace creates anxiety. Status without identity creates emptiness. Achievement without alignment creates burnout. Successful people understand this early, or they learn it the hard way. So they build from the inside out. Pause here. You've now seen how successful people think, act, recover, and grow. But we haven't yet touched the habits that govern their relationships, their communication, and their ability to influence the world around them. That's where success multiplies. That's what comes next. Chapter 19. They master relationships without losing themselves. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Success is never built alone. But here's the truth few people want to admit. Relationships can either multiply your growth or silently destroy it. Successful people understand this deeply. They don't try to please everyone. They don't chase popularity. They don't dilute themselves to fit in. Instead, they choose alignment over approval. They surround themselves with people who challenge them, not people who comfort their excuses. They invest in relationships that are built on honesty, mutual respect, shared values, long-term thinking, and just as importantly, they learn when to walk away. They understand that loyalty to the wrong people is betrayal of your future. So they set boundaries. They protect their time. They don't over-explain their decisions, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Because successful people know this. Your environment programs your behavior. Change the people, and you change the trajectory. Chapter 20. They communicate with clarity, not noise. Successful people don't speak more. They speak better. They don't ramble. They don't fill silence with insecurity. They don't talk just to be heard. They communicate with intention. When they speak, there is structure. When they explain, there is clarity. When they listen, there is presence. They understand that words are tools. Used correctly, words inspire, negotiate, lead, influence, heal. Used carelessly, words confuse, divide, weaken, destroy trust. That's why successful people choose precision over volume. They think before they speak. They pause before they react. They respond instead of reacting. And in a world addicted to noise, this calm, controlled communication becomes a powerful advantage. Chapter 21. They control their attention like a weapon. Attention is the most valuable currency of the modern world, and successful people guard it fiercely. They don't let notifications dictate their focus. They don't jump from distraction to distraction. They don't consume endlessly without intention. They design their days around what matters. They understand something most people miss. What you focus on, you become. So they feed their minds carefully. They limit pointless drama, negative input, meaningless scrolling, and they prioritize deep work, strategic thinking, intentional learning. They don't try to do everything. They do the right things consistently because they know focus compounds. A little focus every day creates massive results over time. Pause here. You've now reached a critical threshold. You've seen the habits that build discipline, the mindset that sustains growth, the relationships that multiply success, and the focus that protects momentum. What remains are the final habits, the ones that determine whether success lasts or collapses under its own weight. That's where we're going next. Chapter 22, they build systems, not just goals. Most people live goal to goal. They get motivated, they set a target, they push hard, and then they burn out. Successful people don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems. They understand that motivation is emotional, but systems are mechanical. A system works even when you don't feel like working. So instead of asking, "How do I stay motivated?" they ask, "How do I make success automatic?" They design routines that remove friction. They don't depend on willpower. They remove temptation. They don't wait for inspiration. They schedule discipline. Morning routines, weekly reviews, daily non-negotiables, small actions repeated consistently become unstoppable momentum. This is why success looks effortless from the outside, because the real work was done quietly, through systems nobody saw. Chapter 23, they respect time more than money. Money can be earned again. Time cannot. Successful people understand this early, or learn it the hard way. They don't waste hours trying to look busy. They don't trade their best energy for low-value tasks. They measure everything by leverage. They ask, does this scale? Does this move the needle? Does this compound? They learn to say no, often not because they're selfish, but because every yes costs time. They protect their mornings, they batch distractions, they structure their days around focus blocks, because they know how you spend your time is how you spend your life, and a wasted day becomes a wasted year, faster than you realize. Chapter 24, they build resilience before results. Here's a truth nobody tells you. Success will break you before it rewards you. Pressure, doubt, failure, isolation, these are not signs you're doing something wrong. They are the price of growth. Successful people don't avoid hardship. They train for it. They strengthen their emotional resilience. They learn to stay calm when things go wrong. They learn to think clearly under stress. They learn to keep moving when motivation disappears. They don't take failure personally. They take it professionally. They analyze. They adjust. They return stronger. Because resilience isn't built when things are easy. It's built when quitting would be understandable, but you don't. Chapter 25. They commit to lifelong evolution. If you appreciate our efforts and our thoughts, subscribe and like this video. We need to show the world that there are many people like us. We must always continue to improve. The most dangerous moment in success is comfort. When progress slows, when routines loosen, when standards quietly drop. Successful people never assume they've arrived. They stay students. They constantly ask, what can I improve? What habits no longer serve me? What level am I being prepared for next? They evolve their thinking as their responsibilities grow. They upgrade their environment. They refine their skills. They expand their perspective because the world changes, and those who stop growing fall behind without noticing. This is why real success is never static. It's a living process, a constant refinement of habits, mindset, and identity. Take a breath here. You've now uncovered the habits that create success, but more importantly, the habits that sustain it. What remains are the final truths, the habits that determine whether success becomes legacy or fades quietly over time. That's where we go next. Chapter 26. They master self-control when no one is watching. The true test of character is what you do in private, when no applause exists, when no one is keeping score, when shortcuts are available. Successful people win here first. They don't let impulses run their lives. They don't chase pleasure at the cost of progress. They understand a hard truth. Every discipline today buys freedom tomorrow. So they delay gratification. They choose the workout over comfort, the savings over impulse spending, the uncomfortable conversation over silent resentment. Not because they enjoy discipline, but because they enjoy results. Self-control isn't about restriction, it's about alignment, aligning today's actions with tomorrow's identity. Chapter 27. They control their inner dialogue. Every life is shaped by the conversations happening inside your head. Successful people pay attention to that voice. They don't let it spiral into negativity unchecked. They challenge limiting beliefs. They reframe setbacks. They speak to themselves with clarity, not cruelty. They replace "I can't" with "How can I learn?" They replace "I'm behind" with "I'm building." They understand that confidence is not arrogance, it's familiarity. Familiarity with effort. Familiarity with problem solving. Familiarity with surviving failure. And the more you train your inner dialogue, the stronger your outer actions become. Chapter 28. They play the long game. Most people want quick wins. Successful people want durable ones. They think in decades, not days. They're willing to be misunderstood early to be undeniable later. They invest when others consume. They build when others compare. They persist when others pivot too quickly. They know that consistency beats intensity, that boring progress beats dramatic burnout, that the compound effect is invisible until it isn't. And when results finally arrive, it looks like luck. But it was patience. It was discipline. It was showing up long after enthusiasm faded. Pause here. Because now you've crossed a line. These habits are no longer inspirational. They're confrontational. They demand a choice to stay comfortable or to step into responsibility. What comes next is where most people turn back and where a few decide to lead. Chapter 29. They take full ownership of their life. At some point, every successful person makes a quiet decision. No more excuses. No more blaming circumstances. No more pointing at the past. No more waiting for permission. They accept a difficult truth. Everything that happens in my life is my responsibility to respond to. Not because it's fair, but because it's powerful. Ownership changes everything. When you own your mistakes, you can fix them. When you own your weaknesses, you can train them. When you own your results, you can repeat them. Successful people don't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" They ask, "What can I do next?" And that single question puts them back in control. Chapter 30. They build systems, not just goals. Goals inspire. Systems transform. Successful people understand this deeply. They don't rely on motivation. They design environments. They create routines that make progress automatic. If they want to read more, the book is already on the desk. If they want to save more, the money is removed before spending begins. If they want to get stronger, the workout is scheduled like a meeting they cannot miss. They remove friction from good habits and add friction to bad ones. This is why they stay consistent even when life gets chaotic. Because systems don't care how you feel. They just work. Chapter 31. They respect time as a non-renewable resource. Money can be earned again. Energy can be restored. Time can never be recovered. Successful people protect it fiercely. They say no without guilt. They leave conversations that go nowhere. They don't over-explain boundaries. They understand that being busy is not the same as being effective. They schedule thinking time. They create space for deep work. They guard mornings and evenings carefully because they know your calendar reveals your priorities, and every wasted hour is a silent cost paid with potential. Take a breath, because now the habits are becoming sharper, less motivational, more surgical. What comes next will challenge how you handle discomfort, pressure, and moments when quitting feels logical. This is where success stops being attractive and starts being demanding. Chapter 32, They do hard things before they feel ready. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. Successful people don't wait for confidence. They understand something most people miss. Confidence is not the prerequisite. Action is. They start when they're uncertain. They speak before they feel polished. They try before they feel prepared. And every time they move forward anyway, confidence follows. Most people wait to feel ready and stay stuck forever. Successful people move first and let growth catch up. They don't ask, "Am I ready?" They ask, "Will I regret not trying?" And that question pushes them forward when fear tries to pull them back. Chapter 33. They master their emotional reactions. This habit separates winners quietly. Successful people feel emotions, but they are not controlled by them. They feel anger without exploding, disappointment without quitting, stress without panicking. They pause. They breathe. They choose their response. While others react impulsively, they respond intentionally. They understand. A moment of emotional control can save years of damage. This doesn't make them cold. It makes them powerful. Because the person who controls their emotions controls their future. Chapter 34. They fail often, but never identify as a failure. Successful people fail more than average people. That's not an accident. It's because they try more. They launch before it's perfect. They test ideas in the real world. They collect feedback without taking it personally. Failure is data, not identity. They don't say, "I failed, so I'm a failure." They say, "This didn't work. What did it teach me?" And every failure sharpens their judgment instead of breaking their confidence. They lose forward. Now listen closely, because the next habits are about what happens when pressure increases, when results are slow, when no one is watching, when discipline is the only thing left. This is where most people fall off, and where real success begins to separate itself. Chapter 35. They stay consistent when motivation disappears. Successful people don't rely on motivation. They know motivation is emotional, temporary, unreliable. Some days it shows up, most days it doesn't. So they build something stronger, ritual. They wake up and do the work whether they feel inspired or empty. They show up when the mood is right and when it's completely wrong. They move forward even on days when nothing feels rewarding. While others wait to feel like it, successful people work from commitment, because commitment doesn't ask permission from emotion, and this is why they keep moving long after everyone else stops. Chapter 36. They build systems, not just goals. Most people chase goals. Successful people build systems. A goal is something you reach once. A system is something that pays you forever. They don't say, "I want to be successful." They say, "What do I do every day that creates success automatically?" They design routines that make progress unavoidable. Systems remove decision fatigue. Systems protect consistency. Systems create momentum even on bad days. When the system is strong, results become inevitable. Chapter 37. They protect their mental environment. Your environment shapes your behavior more than your willpower ever could. Successful people are ruthless about this. They limit exposure to negativity. They control what they consume. They curate conversations, media, and influences. They know what you repeatedly hear becomes what you eventually believe, so they feed their mind with ideas that stretch them, not opinions that shrink them. They choose growth over comfort, even when it feels lonely. Pause here, because the next habits are about time, focus, and sacrifice. They explain why success often looks boring from the outside, but unstoppable from within. Chapter 38. They treat time like a non-renewable asset. Money can be lost and earned again. Time never comes back. Successful people understand this early and painfully. They don't casually waste hours scrolling, complaining, or replaying the same conversations. They ask a dangerous question most people avoid. Is this worth my time? Not, is this fun? Not, is this easy? But, is this aligned with the life I'm building? They schedule their priorities instead of prioritizing their schedule. They understand that every yes is also a no to something else. And because of that awareness, their days quietly compound while others wonder where the time went. Chapter 39. They can focus deeply in a distracted world. Focus is the rarest skill of the modern era. Notifications never stop. Opinions are everywhere. Urgency is constantly manufactured. But successful people train themselves to do one thing at a time, fully. They don't multitask their way to excellence. They single-task their way to mastery. When they work, they work. When they rest, they rest. They protect blocks of deep focus like sacred ground because they know 1 hour of focused work beats 10 hours of distracted effort. And while others scatter their energy, successful people concentrate it. That's how ordinary effort produces extraordinary results. Chapter 40. They sacrifice what they want now for what they want most. This is the habit nobody likes to talk about, because it hurts. Successful people say no, a lot. No to parties, no to comfort, no to short-term pleasure, not forever, but for now. They don't see sacrifice as loss. They see it as exchange. They trade distraction for discipline. They trade comfort for capability. They trade ease for equity. And eventually, they get to live a life most people only talk about. Sit with this, because the next habits separate dreamers from builders. They explain why some people start strong but never finish, and why others finish quietly, then shock the world. Chapter 41. They build self-trust by doing what they say. Confidence is not loud. Confidence is not talking. Confidence is evidence. Successful people trust themselves because they've proven over time that when they say they'll do something, they do it, even when no one is watching, even when it's inconvenient. Even when motivation disappears, they don't rely on mood. They rely on commitment. Every kept promise builds internal credibility. Every broken promise erodes it. That's why many people doubt themselves. They've trained themselves not to listen. The successful reverse this. They start small, daily, consistently, and slowly, quietly. They become someone they can depend on. That inner trust becomes unshakable power. Chapter 42. They play the long game while others chase quick wins. Most people want results now. Successful people ask a different question. What will still matter in 5 years? They invest in skills that compound, relationships that deepen, systems that scale. They're not impressed by overnight success. They know it's rarely overnight. While others jump from idea to idea, they stay with one path long enough for momentum to take over. They understand this truth. Boring consistency beats exciting inconsistency. That's why they look calm when others panic, why they're patient when others rush, why they win when others quit. Chapter 43. They control their inner dialogue. Dear viewer, please write in the comments what interested you most in the video. This will help us improve our videos. What you say to yourself when no one else is around shapes everything. Successful people are not immune to doubt. They simply don't let it run the show. They notice negative thoughts, then question them. They replace "I can't" with "how could I?" They refuse to rehearse failure mentally. They rehearse execution. Because they know your mind believes what you repeat. So they choose words carefully, not fake positivity, but disciplined thinking. That's how pressure sharpens them instead of breaking them. And now we move into the habits that govern how they respond when things go wrong. Because success is not built in perfect conditions. It's built in chaos, resistance, and setbacks. Chapter 44. They respond, they don't react. Most people live on emotional autopilot. Something happens. They react. Someone criticizes. They explode or shut down. Something goes wrong. They panic. Successful people pause. That pause is everything. In that pause, they separate what happened from what it means. They don't let emotions make decisions for them. They let emotions give information and nothing more. They understand this powerful rule: if you control your reactions, you control your outcomes. So when things break, when plans fail, when people disappoint, they don't waste energy on drama. They ask, what's the smartest next move? That calm response under pressure is one of the rarest and most valuable habits on earth. Chapter 45. They turn setbacks into data. Where most people see failure, successful people see feedback. They don't take mistakes personally. They take them seriously. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes insight. Every wrong move becomes refinement. They don't say, this happened because I'm not good enough. They say, this happened. What does it teach me? That mindset keeps them moving forward while others get stuck replaying the past. They don't dwell. They extract value. And over time, those lessons compound into wisdom that can't be faked or rushed. Chapter 46. They define success on their own terms. One of the most dangerous traps in life is chasing someone else's definition of success. Successful people escape this early. They ask, what does a good life actually look like to me? Not what looks impressive, not what gets applause, not what wins approval, but what brings fulfillment, peace, and freedom. Because when you don't define success for yourself, society will define it for you. And you'll spend your life climbing ladders only to realize they were leaning against the wrong wall. The successful choose intentionally, and that clarity gives them focus most people never experience. Now, we approach the final stretch, the habits that hold everything together, the ones that determine whether success lasts or collapses. Because getting there is one thing, staying there is another. Chapter 42, They Master the Long Game. Most people quit too early, not because they aren't capable, but because they underestimate time. Successful people think differently about time. They don't ask, how fast can I get results? They ask, how long can I stay consistent? They understand that real success compounds quietly, day after day, choice after choice, habit after habit. They are willing to look foolish today for the sake of being free tomorrow. While others chase quick wins, they invest in patience. While others panic over slow progress, they trust the process. Because they know something powerful. Time will either work against you or work for you. The difference is consistency. Chapter 43, They Don't Confuse Motion with Progress. Busy does not mean productive, and successful people learn this early. They don't measure their days by how exhausted they feel. They measure them by what actually moved forward. They cut out unnecessary tasks. They eliminate distractions. They simplify. They focus on the few actions that create the most impact. Because they know doing more isn't the goal. Doing what matters is. This is why they appear calm while others feel overwhelmed. They aren't doing everything. They're doing the right things. Chapter 44, They Make Decisions from Vision, not Emotion. Emotions are temporary. Vision is steady. Successful people don't let moods dictate their actions. They don't make life-altering decisions when they're angry, afraid, or desperate. They pause. They zoom out. They ask long-term questions. How will this affect me in 5 years? Does this align with who I'm becoming? Is this comfort or growth? This ability to detach emotionally gives them an unfair advantage. While others react, they respond. And that single habit changes everything. Chapter 45, They Turn Setbacks into Data. Failure doesn't destroy successful people. It teaches them. They don't label themselves as failures. They label the attempt as incomplete. They ask, what worked? What didn't? What needs to change? They extract lessons instead of carrying shame. This is why they recover faster, adapt quicker, and come back stronger. Where others stop, they adjust. Where others quit, they refine. And over time, this creates an unstoppable edge. Chapter 46, They Repeat the Basics long after others get bored. This is the habit no one talks about. The unglamorous one, the quiet one, the one that actually creates mastery. Successful people never abandon the basics. They don't stop learning. They don't stop practicing. They don't stop refining fundamentals. They know the basics executed consistently will always outperform advanced strategies done occasionally. So while others chase novelty, they chase excellence, and excellence compounds. Transition, the quiet difference. At this point, something should be clear. Success is not dramatic. It is disciplined. It is not loud. It is intentional. And most importantly, it is available to anyone willing to live differently. In the next continuation, we'll go deeper into the internal habits that separate those who start from those who finish. Because starting is easy. Finishing is rare. Chapter 47, They Build Identity, not just results. Most people chase outcomes. Successful people build identity. They don't ask, what do I need to do today? They ask, Who do I need to become? Because actions come and go. Motivation rises and falls. But identity is permanent. When someone sees themselves as disciplined, they act disciplined even when it's hard. When someone sees themselves as a learner, they keep growing even without immediate rewards. This is the invisible advantage. They don't force habits. Their habits come naturally from who they believe they are. And once identity shifts, everything else follows. Chapter 48. They create structure to protect focus. Freedom does not come from chaos. It comes from structure. Successful people design their lives intentionally. They decide when they work, what they work on, who gets access to their time. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems. Because willpower fades, systems remain. They remove temptations instead of fighting them. They automate discipline. This is why they seem so consistent. They've made inconsistency inconvenient. Chapter 49. They value their time more than their comfort. Time is the one resource that never comes back. Successful people understand this deeply. They don't trade time for temporary comfort. They invest it in skills, in relationships that matter, in projects that compound. They say no, often. No to distractions, no to drama, no to things that don't move their life forward, not because they're cold, but because they're clear. Every yes costs time. Every no protects it, and that clarity is priceless. Chapter 50. They review, reflect, and adjust constantly. Growth does not happen by accident. Successful people regularly pause to review their lives. They ask, what am I doing well? What am I avoiding? Where am I lying to myself? They don't wait for life to force change. They initiate it. This habit of reflection keeps them aligned. It prevents drift. It sharpens direction. It keeps small problems from becoming big ones. Reflection is not weakness. It is awareness. And awareness is power. Chapter 51. They control their internal dialogue. What you say to yourself becomes the rules you live by. Successful people guard their inner voice carefully. They don't allow constant self-criticism. They don't indulge in victim language. Instead, they ask better questions. What can I learn? How can I improve? What's the next best step? They speak to themselves with honesty, but also with respect, because they know you will never outperform the story you tell yourself about who you are. Transition, the quiet strength. At this stage, one thing becomes undeniable. Success is not about luck. It is not about talent. It is not about shortcuts. It is about daily internal discipline. And the people who win are the ones who master themselves first. In the next continuation, we will explore the habits that protect momentum when motivation disappears, because motivation is optional. Discipline is not. Chapter 52, they build momentum when motivation is gone. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up when life is easy and disappears the moment resistance appears. Successful people know this. They do not depend on motivation. They depend on momentum. Momentum is built through action, especially when you don't feel like it. One small win creates another. One disciplined decision fuels the next. They understand a simple truth. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. So when energy is low, they lower the bar but never stop moving, because motion keeps the machine alive. Chapter 53. They protect their energy like a resource. Energy is currency. You spend it every day, and most people waste it on things that don't matter. Successful people are selective. They don't engage in unnecessary arguments. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't carry emotional weight. that isn't theirs. They protect their mornings. They guard their evenings. They manage their inputs carefully because they know you cannot build an extraordinary life with depleted energy. Focus follows energy. Progress follows focus. Chapter 54. They embrace boring consistency. There is nothing glamorous about consistency. It's repetitive. It's quiet. It rarely gets applause. And that's why it works. Successful people show up even when nothing exciting happens. They train when no one is watching. They work when no one is clapping. They keep going when results are invisible. They understand that greatness is built in the boring middle, not in the breakthrough moments, but in the thousands of ordinary days before it. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Chapter 55. They simplify instead of complicating. Most people make progress harder than it needs to be. They overthink. They overplan. They overwhelm themselves. Successful people do the opposite. They simplify. They focus on the few actions that matter most and ignore the rest. They don't chase every opportunity. They commit to one direction and execute relentlessly. Simplicity creates clarity. Clarity creates speed. Speed creates momentum. Complexity is often just disguised avoidance. Chapter 56. They use pain as information, not identity. Pain is inevitable. Struggle is part of growth. The difference is how it's interpreted. Unsuccessful people ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Successful people ask, "What is this teaching me?" They don't let pain define them. They let it refine them. Failure becomes feedback. Setbacks become strategy. Hard seasons become training. They don't numb discomfort. They learn from it. Chapter 57. They play the long game. They are not obsessed with immediate results. They are committed to long-term outcomes. They make decisions based on where they want to be in 5 years, not how they feel today. They delay gratification. They invest when others consume. They build when others rest. This patience gives them an unfair advantage because while others quit early, they are just getting started. Transition, the internal shift. At this point, it becomes clear. Success is not about adding more. It's about removing what doesn't serve you, removing excuses, removing distractions, removing emotional chaos. What remains is clarity, and clarity is the foundation of every successful life. Chapter 77. They build systems, not just goals. Goals are exciting. Systems are effective. Most people live from goal to goal, then feel lost once one is achieved. Successful people build systems, daily routines, weekly structures, repeatable habits. They design lives that naturally produce results instead of relying on bursts of willpower. Because willpower fades, systems endure. When progress feels automatic, success stops being stressful. It becomes inevitable. Chapter 78. They never stop becoming. This is where everything comes together. The most successful people never see themselves as finished. They are always learning, always evolving, always refining, not because they feel inadequate, but because growth is who they are. They don't cling to old identities. They don't resist change. They understand a simple truth. The version of you that got you here will not be the version that takes you further. So they let go. They adapt. They grow. Again and again. Final transition. The real secret. Now listen carefully. Because after all these habits, after all these principles, after all these chapters, the real secret is this. Success isn't a single habit. It's a way of living, a way of thinking, a way of choosing, a way of responding to life. It's what you do daily, quietly, consistently, intentionally. And that means something powerful for you. It means you don't need permission. You don't need luck. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to decide to live differently, to act differently, to think differently, because once you do, everything else begins to change. If this audiobook resonated with you, share the chapter that hit you the hardest and ask yourself one final question. Which habit will you start today so your future can thank you tomorrow?